So it has actually been a bit of a battle with this one for some reason. I don't know why. Either it's God telling me not to preach or Satan trying to stop me. Let's hope it's the latter. I'm just doing some copies for the other one, so we can get that stopped maybe. Would you mind? Cheers.
He's still.
In case you don't know me very well, I'm Steve. For the last 4 years I've been working, researching popular culture, writing evangelistic scripts and producing programs that are broadcast on international radio. We mainly broadcast for the unchurched, so I'm not really targeting Christians. So I attempt to research popular culture in a way that's going to be appealing to unchurched people. So this morning I'd like to share with you some of my observations on how God is portrayed in popular culture and in the world we live. Not necessarily how God is, but how God seems to the world. Are you following me on the difference there? So, if you can go to the next one, Michael. Our world sees God through the eyes of their culture. Last year, God turned up in countless places in our culture. He turned up in the lyrics of secular songs. He turned up in the scripts and the dialogues of box office movies. And everybody, everywhere in the world, regardless of religion or beliefs, has this last year spent some time thinking about God, whether consciously or subconsciously. I've considered questions like if he's real, who he might be, and whether he's good or bad or indifferent. And those considerations and conclusions they arrived at are mostly not based on well-founded and researched information from pastors and ministers and Christian TV. They're made on the strength of the cultural influences that surrounds them, for right or wrong. This morning I'd like to show you where God's turned up in our culture this year. Some of these examples will cheer you with the knowledge that God is at work, and some of them will sadden you as you see how Satan manages to twist the truth. And some of these examples, there I am, some of these examples of people and singers and actors and celebrities, some of them you'll have heard of, others you won't, but that doesn't mean that they're not very famous. It just means that perhaps it's people that us sheltered Christians don't come across in our daily lives. But for better or worse, the people that I'm going to introduce you to, if you don't know them already, these people made our world think about God this year. They shaped how our world saw God in 2006. Next one, Michael. Thanks. I haven't got the clicker. Our world sees God through singers. Let me introduce you to British singer Nera Napala. She's the next one. She wrote the song I'm about to play you after the war in Iraq first commenced. It's been in the charts this year. If you listen to More FM, chances are you've heard it. They've been thrashing it. And that she wrote it after the war on Iraq commenced kind of will explain to you why her video I'm about to show you is a clip of a war in a supermarket. I'm just going to play you a short clip. This is the one with sound mic, so if you could see if it goes good. But more importantly than the war in a supermarket shopping clip, listen to the lyrics of this. Did you catch them? I thought you might not. If God's on our side, then God is a joker. Asleep on the job, his children fall over. Can you hit that back arrow and play that once more for me, Mike? God's on our side, then God is a joker. Asleep on the job, his children fall over. Running out through the door and straight to the sky. Now that you knew what you were listening for, did you catch them that time? At first, I was kind of offended and annoyed on God's behalf. I was thinking how terrible that lyric was. But Nirina Pallett, she didn't write it to offend. She wrote it because that's how it feels. That's how it seems to her. She wrote the song after the war commenced, and if God's on our side, then God's a joker, asleep on the job as children fall over, and can't you see how she could arrive at that conclusion? God's main man in America continues his war on Iraq, and then just to reinforce it, God's people, Israel, drop bombs on children and innocent people in Gaza. If God's on our side, then God's a joker. Nirina Pallett's view is formed on God by what she's seen in the media, the God represented by the people who claim to follow him. And every non-Christian who's heard Nirina Pallett's song on the radio, they've formed a little more of an opinion on who God is based on the lyrics of her song. So what I want you to understand is they don't have the benefit and the luxury of hearing about God from well-informed sources, from pastors and Christians and Shine TV. They make up their view on God based on what they see happening in the culture that surrounds them. How does our world see God? Our world sees God in the movies. This is the next one, Michael. You're right, seeing God in movies is a totally crazy way to do it. Who would rely on movies to get an accurate representation of God? But do it, they do. Because they're not regular churchgoers or Bible readers, Christian TV watchers, but they're still spiritual people like us, and they still have a hole to fill. So not realising that they are looking for God. What will they see? This Christmas at the movies, they'll see God represented in 2 different films. Perhaps you can guess what those films are. One is the Nativity Story. And don't go to the other one just yet, Michael. The other one's Borat. In the Nativity Story, as you probably well know, the movie follows Kiwi actress Keisha Castle-Hughes of Whale Rider fame as she plays Mary, and her and Joseph's journey to Bethlehem and the birth of Jesus. I haven't seen it myself yet, but Christians who have seen it are hailing it as a movie that's set to become an all-time Christian classic. In Borat, you can skip over to the next one. In Borat, things are a little more complicated. Who's come across them so far? Wow. Okay. This guy's been on the news and on Close Up and what have you, so he's starting to get reasonably well known. The movie, I'll try and explain it to you. The movie follows Borat Savgev. How do you say that? He's a make-believe journalist from Kazakhstan who is sent to America to study it and to take home useful Americanisms to improve village life in a fake and backward Kazakhstan. Now where the line blurs with this movie is there really are only a few actors. Most of the people who Borat comes across and interacts with in America are real people who think Borat is a real Kazakhstani journalist, and the whole movie plays on shock value. Borat's outrageously offensive and bigoted, and yet he seems innocently unaware. And somehow his character causes real people to display their real prejudices. Because Borat is racist, racist people will open up and display their racist prejudices or anti-Semitism or whatever the case might have been in the movie. Now where does God appear in this movie? Well, the plot of the movie takes us to where Borat is destitute and lonely and out of money, lost in America. So he sets his chicken free and falls asleep on the street, wakes up in the morning in front of a Pentecostal church, and he attends the service. And what we've got to remember is that this is not a setup. And people who go to Borat They know they're seeing a make-believe Borat interacting with real people. Man, why did I automatically cringe when I heard that Borat attends a Pentecostal church?